looking for the inside scoop on anything as far as NBA transactions go, this is the guy for it. Charania over at ESPN. And on today's edition of Celtics Today by Chat Sports, we have a major report from him on the Celtics offseason and any potential moves that they're going to be making. You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith. And let's jump right into this quote from Shams. On the Pat McAfee Show, he went on and said this: the Boston Celtics, they're going to make trades. The Boston Celtics will have a much different roster next season, potentially. They'll definitely have a different roster. The question is just how severe as far as the movement is going to be for them. And yeah, this is crazy that we are seeing this Celtics core potentially breaking up after just winning a championship less than a calendar year ago. But this isn't necessarily new information for Celtics fans coming from Shams. We've known for a couple of weeks now, and Shams even went on the McAfee Show a couple of weeks ago and said that teams around the league are preparing for the Celtics to kind of blow things up a little bit and make some moves to try to get some money off of their books for 25, 26, and beyond. Because if you look at the Celtics cap table at this point, they're paying more in projected luxury tax than they are for the actual roster that they're employing at this point. It's going to be a $500 million price tag, and with the Celtics in the midst of an ownership change, it just doesn't seem like anybody involved at the top is going to be wanting to pay $500 million to a roster that ceiling is capped with a Jayson Tatum torn Achilles that's probably going to keep him out for most of, if not all, of next season. And if you look at the Celtics' big contracts, things that they're able to move at this point, and keep in mind with the Celtics above the second apron by like $25 million at this point, they can't aggregate salaries in a trade. So they're going to have to trade just one of these guys at a time to try to get underneath that second apron, and then they can try to make more flexible moves afterwards. But you got Tatum at $54 million. You're not trading him. Jaylen Brown makes $53 million. 2 Supermax deals right here. Jrue Holiday makes $32, and he's 34 years old. Kristaps Porzingis makes $31 on an expiring deal, and Derrick White makes just under $30 million. Pretty solid value for him. So the Celtics, they're going to have to make moves this summer, but how drastic are those moves going to be? If I know anything, it's that Brad Stevens is going to make fundamentally sound moves that is not going to put this franchise in the gutter, because he's a very smart basketball mind and he's made no bad moves up to this point, per my opinion. But if you believe in Brad Stevens, if you believe in the brain trust up in this front office, show me. Go down below and hit the thumbs up icon. I need all the Celtics fans' support here in support of Brad, because look, it's not going to be easy to make the moves he's going to have to make. It's going to have to take a lot of agreement from other teams around the league. So if you believe in him to get the job done and make the Celtics a contender for years to come, go on down below and hit the thumbs up icon like today's video. All right, let's get into the full quote from Shams here, because I want to give you guys everything that he did say in his little Celtics spurt on the McAfee Show. He said, you look at Jayson Tatum, of course, he's injured. You can't really trade him. That's really the face of your franchise. After that, it's really going to depend on what value you can get. I think teams are going to express a lot of interest in Jrue Holiday. Teams are going to inquire about Kristaps Porzingis. Teams are going to inquire about Jaylen Brown. And I think the Celtics are going to have to identify what can we get for each of these players? Which player does it make sense to trade? Is there any way where we can get some players back that can help right now, potentially help us moving forward, get some assets back for? I think they're going to do a lot of things to retool this roster. But again, there's a lot of question marks around Al Horford's future, Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. We said it on this show, like I mentioned earlier today. The Celtics are going to explore trades. They're going to make moves. And this conversation and this talking point from Shams about the Celtics came from an overarching conversation on the McAfee Show where Shams said that this offseason forthcoming in the NBA might be the most craziest ever. Now, you might be thinking, Tyler, that's totally incorrect grammar. There's no way Shams said it. Yeah, that is the exact verbiage that they used on the show. They started chanting MCE for the most craziest offseason ever forthcoming. And I anticipate that with not a lot of cap flexibility around the league, teams are going to have to make trades if they want to get better. And I know a lot of teams feel like they are a move or two away from being a championship contender in this league with the parity being so thin at this point. So it's going to be a crazy offseason, and Shams thinks that the Celtics are going to be huge players in the transaction circle this summer. Shams also made a point during that whole quote, that a piece that I kind of took out, about the Celtics having faith in Jaylen Brown, and that's a name that he envisions them probably keeping around, and I do as well. I don't believe that even though teams inquire about Jaylen Brown, I believe the Celtics are going to be very hesitant to trade Jaylen Brown, or to trade Jaylen Brown with the uncertainty around the Celtics' future with their superstar, Jayson Tatum. Like, is he going to come back and be the best version of himself? He's going to come back better than the Achilles, or is he just going to come back and be a good, very, very good player instead of a great player that we've come to know him to be? Keith Smith over at Spotrac, who I think is one of the most tapped-in capologists in the league and one of the most tapped-in Celtics guys around social media as well. He said, I do understand the thought process of trading Jaylen Brown, but I don't think that's where this team is at. I think they're very much in a place of, we're not going to try to start all over with Jayson Tatum and a bunch of dudes on rookie scale and less than $20 million contracts. And that was an idea that I've been thinking about for a part of this offseason already. Like, could the Celtics just blow it up and try to tank next season? Honestly, it just doesn't make all that much sense. With the pieces they have in their core right now and the landscape of the Eastern Conference, it makes no real sense to go up there and just blow everything up. They could easily contend in the Eastern Conference next season with the core of Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, Peyton Pritchard, and company. So don't rule out a Godfather offer for Jaylen Brown to be traded this offseason, because if Brad sees one like that could totally make this team better down the line and clean up their salary books right now, then he's going to make that deal happen. But I think it's very unlikely that JB gets traded, and the Celtics probably don't want to make they're not going to be calling teams up. They're going to be receiving calls, and I doubt that they get one that makes them actually move the needle. But one thing that Shams did not mention, if you scroll on back, if you go and look at the entire Shams quote, a name that he did not mention is Derrick White. Now, a couple of days ago, we did hear that, the Golden State Warriors might have some interest in Derrick White. Yeah, teams can have interest in Derrick White all they want. I think Shams is smart enough to not include his name because he knows the Celtics aren't going to trade him. He feels like the best value player, maybe in the entire NBA at this point. It's him and it's Peyton Pritchard for the best value contracts in the NBA. Very happy the Celtics have both. Because over the next couple of years, Derrick White never makes more than $35 million. And I'll tell you right now, Derrick White today is a $35 million player. You could argue a $40 million player. And the Celtics have him on an absolute bargain, $28 million next year. So it's not even the most cap saving or cap flexibility getting moved by if you're going to trade Derrick White. You could only get so much of a difference back because so many teams don't have enough room to absorb a lot of cap in a trade. So trading a $28 million salary doesn't make any sense. He averages 17 points a game. He shoots 40% from three. He's one of the best defenders in the league. There's no point in trading Derrick White, and he's 30 years old. He's on the timeline of the Jays. He's gotten better every season, and Derrick White's going to retire a Boston Celtic. But you tell me, not Derrick White, maybe not Jaylen Brown, but it could be. Who is the most likely Celtic to be traded this offseason? The two names that Shams mentioned, we're going to talk about them in just a moment. But you tell me in the comment section, who is the most likely Celtic to be traded this summer? Before we get into those two names, I do have to mention that when Shams says the Celtics are going to have a much different roster next year, I only believe that the Celtics have a much different roster is if they trade one of Jaylen Brown or Derrick White. And I really do not envision that happening whatsoever. You can even throw Peyton Pritchard in there as guys who have been around since the Celtics went to the finals back in 2022. This team would look a lot different if it didn't have Jayson Tatum, obviously, and then you get rid of one of those core guys. The other players on the Boston Celtics that are prime trade candidates this summer are guys that they got before the 23-24 run to the championship. Guys who were complimentary, cherries on top to a team that was already contending for a championship. Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Now, what can you get for a Jrue Holiday at this point? His value is very murky. We're not exactly sure as to what the rest of the league believes Jrue Holiday is worth sending back to Boston for. Is it going to require a first-round pick that's attached to the 34-year-old who's making $34 million? Like, he has a lot of years left on his contract. He's got $100 million left on the deal. How valuable is that to contending teams across the league? Because that's the type of environment that I think Jrue Holiday would be most interested in, and that's the type of teams that I think that would be most interested in trading for Jrue Holiday. So a couple teams that make sense to make a deal. Dallas. We've heard over the past couple days they have reported interest in Jrue Holiday, and they're quote-unquote exploring feasible pathways to make a deal. The Clippers, today, I just saw an article. They have reported interest via Mark Stein in going after Jrue Holiday, and the Celtics also outbid the Clippers way back when they made the trade originally in 2023. So new reported interest there from LA. And then the Rockets and the Spurs are two contending teams that are going to try to build their identity on defense. And obviously, with the Rockets scenario, like Holiday would fit right in there. And the Spurs, they need a little bit more defense in the backcourt as well. I think those are two teams that are looking for more veteran experience that could really help them get to the next level. Assets I would want back out of these four teams. Well, if I'm talking about the Mavs, I like Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. If you can get both, sign me up. Let's do the trade right here, right now. Are you going to get both? It's probably unlikely. You're probably going to get one of the two, and I would say it's more likely you get Daniel Gafford. The Celtics need help in their front court. Bogdanovich would be the player that I'm looking for most back from the Los Angeles Clippers. And then you have Derrick Jones Jr. These two players combined for about $27 million in salary, so the Celtics could clear up a little bit of cap if they get two of those guys back. I like Derrick Jones, solid 3-and-D wing. Rockets, Dylan Brooks and Tari Eason. Are you going to get both? I would say it's probably unlikely, but I would definitely need one of the two back if you're going to trade Jrue to Houston. What about San Antonio? Harrison Barnes and Keldon Johnson, I just think is probably the weakest package back out of this, out of all the names that we have listed here. So I'd probably be least inclined to send him to San Antonio. But if you don't have to send a first-round pick, maybe I would take that deal. I don't think that the Celtics are going to take scraps back for Jrue Holiday. Like I think Brad is smarter than that. He knows that Jrue Holiday has value across this league, and he's not going to just take a bag of chips to send him away just to create some salary relief. Like, it's been widely reported that the Celtics are not going to just straight dump these teams into a couple of different spots that can absorb a big salary number. They're going to try to get value back. They're going to try to continue to contend. So I don't think the Celtics are going to take back scraps or really, really low, basically nothing type of value for Jrue Holiday. Now, before we get any further and talk about Kristaps Porzingis, I got to get you guys hooked up with a deal from our friends over at Fanatics. I was looking through all the sale items, trying to get you guys hooked up with a fire deal, and this is a fire hoodie for 40% off. Go get it today. I know it's summer. It's hot out there, but you'd be lying to yourself if you told me that you don't wear a hoodie at least one time this summer. So rep your favorite green squad and go get hooked up with this Celtics hoodie at our link in the description right now, chatsports.com/BOS hoodie. Chatsports.com/boss hoodie. Go down below and get yourself hooked up with this fire deal over at Fanatics. And Kristaps Porzingis, with his expiring $30 million, is going to have some value across the league. Now, as far as his on-court value, it's not much at this point with his mystery illness basically zapping all of his basketball powers away like it's Space Jam in the playoffs. It's unfortunate that Kristaps Porzingis' value is kind of tanked over these past couple of months. But teams are going to be looking for some assistance in the front court, some floor spacing abilities, and the expiring contract makes it very flexible for these teams to get off of that money after one season if things don't work out. So some teams that make sense for KP. The LA Lakers, that's been a team that's kind of been long mocked as a trade partner in a Porzingis deal. Brooklyn, if you are looking to do a salary dump, then Brooklyn's a team to go out there and get it done with. They have $55+ million in cap space. The Golden State Warriors are a team that's being floated around as potential Porzingis suitor. They need some front court assistance. They definitely need more size, and they can always use more floor spacing over there. Charlotte, is that a team that could be willing to take on an expiring contract? I think so. And then same thing with Chicago. They don't really have a lot of direction going on, so it could be worth it for them to take on the Porzingis deal as well. And look, you're going to probably have to attach some draft capital to trade Porzingis and get any type of value back. Like, if you're just trading KP on his own, like, don't expect any impact players or any assets that are worthy of even making the deal back for KP. So you're probably going to have to attach a first-round pick, maybe potentially 2 first-round picks if the value they're going to get back is really, really solid. So some assets from those teams that we talked about that I would want back in a Porzingis deal, and this is all kind of considering maybe adding one first-round pick, a swap potentially, to get some of these players back. Rui Hachimura from the Lakers. He's a wing scorer. Without Tatum next year, the Celtics are going to need some assistance in the scoring department. If you're going to trade him to the Nets, like I said, that's more so a salary cap relief move. So it's not going to be anything necessarily awesome back that you get for KP, but you're going to clean up your books. Moses Moody from the Warriors. I think he's a solid young 3-and-D player and hasn't really gotten the right role yet in his young career. Mark Williams would be the name that I'm probably looking at the most out of this list from the Hornets. $8.8 million. Like, he is a good value. I think he's still on his rookie deal. And, he was a player who Charlotte was willing to deal this past trade deadline for just Dalton Connect. So we'll see if that is a possibility. And then Nikola Vucevic, who makes about $10 million less then Porzingis, he could be a player that Boston could go after, even though he's just atrocious on the defensive end. Does Brad Stevens, though, want to potentially get more value back for Porzingis by playing the waiting game? With Kristaps Porzingis set to play in Eurobasket this summer, hopefully at 100% health, maybe some teams could see a couple of clips from over there in Europe and be like, okay, wait, Porzingis was a 20-point-per-game scorer last season. He can provide something out there on the basketball court. Maybe Brad plays the waiting game like he did. Kind of not his fault, but when they traded for Jrue Holiday, like, think about how late that was in the offseason. It was like a couple of weeks before training camp started, and they got Jrue Holiday in town. So, like, Brad Stevens is no stranger to making late offseason trades. Maybe that could be something that's more worthwhile for Porzingis. In a Kristaps Porzingis or Jrue Holiday trade, though, expect a third team or more teams to get involved, especially in the first deal that Boston makes, so that they can relieve as much salary cap as possible. If they're going to do a one-for-one deal with the vast majority of NBA teams, you're going to either have to match salary straight up 100%, or you're only going to create like $3, $4, $5 million in a potential deal like that. So to get under the second apron, the Celtics need to shed at least like 20 to 25 million. They're not going to be able to do that in a 1-and-1 two-team trade. They're going to have to get more teams involved, and that's going to have to take a lot of negotiating. I'm excited to see it all go down, though. Get creative for me before we get out of here in the comments section. Comment your favorite and ideal Celtics trade idea this offseason. It could be for Porzingis, it could be for Holiday, it could be for even Jaylen Brown or Derrick White. You comment below your ideal Celtics trade this offseason and let me know. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well, as we're going to be keeping you guys tapped in with every Celtics offseason rumor. If Sham says anything else about Boston in the next couple weeks, you know we're bringing you another video right here on the channel. So lock us in as your #1 spot for Celtics offseason content. We'll see you guys all in the next one. As always, let's go C's.